Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Enchantiverse, the Enchantiverse podcast, the podcast where we talk about all the things that enchant us, make us feel alive, that bring beauty and wonder into our lives. And I have missed you guys. I am so sad that it's been so long. My baby, my little boy, has started sleeping in our art studio for a little bit. And so my nighttime recording sessions have been few and far between, but that's okay because I'm here now. And even though I really wanted this episode to come out at the beginning of summer, it's the end of summer, which honestly, very like magical, romantic kind of time of year. This little in between period of summer, almost fall. Ooh, I really like it. There's something kind of like moody and there's like the freshness of summer still just clinging on a little bit. The heat is still high, but it's kind of starting to cool down in like the evenings and the mornings. And I don't know, there's just some sort of like all I can say is magic. Something's here, something's in this little moment of time, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think it's a perfect time actually to talk about what we're talking about today, which is mermaids. Oh my gosh, mermaids. I have been wanting to talk to you guys about mermaids for a million years. um, I read a book a few months ago about mermaids, and it was so good, and it made me so excited to do a podcast episode on it. I actually got the book because I've been intrigued and enchanted by mermaids since honestly as long as I can remember. And something that's been really interesting in doing this podcast is I always have like all of these like things I want to talk about, and these like, I don't know, like myths, legends, creatures, ideas that I feel like I've had since I was a baby, like since honestly as long as I can remember. And then I go to like research them, and there's not like a whole lot I can find. And it's kind of like it rattles my brain a little bit. Like there's stuff out there, but you really have to dig. It happened recently actually. I was reading Alice in Wonderland with our book club, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling like there's so much here. There's like so much symbolism. I feel it. I see some of it. I want to know more. Like surely someone has like researched this to the T and like can tell me all the little mysteries and secrets in this book. Well, I couldn't really find anything. Like there is a book. It was too expensive for my little pocketbook right now. I think it was called Decoding Alice in Wonderland, and it was like over $50 to buy, and so that was a little out of my range now, but I can't wait to get it. I think it was written by someone with the last name Day. It might be Ben Day. I can't remember. David Day, I think. Anyway, can't wait to get it because it looks like someone has done that research. But you go on like YouTube, you go on different websites and things, there really wasn't like a whole lot that I could find. And the same was true of mermaids. I could find some things, but like I guess the questions about mermaids that really like ignite my soul and that I like, I don't know, like the symbolism and all of that. I just felt like I couldn't find enough. So I got this book. And it was really good. I feel like it did a pretty good job. Anyway, it's called Mermaids, The Myths, Legends and Lore by Sky Alexander. My same name. I was like, okay, us skies out here really are interested in mythical creatures, because it looks like she wrote like a series of books on like fairies and mermaids and unicorns and things. And it had a lot of good stuff in there. Not everything I was looking for, but it did just like kind of just kiss the surface of everything I'm wanting. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to try to, I'm going to share the things that I've learned, and I'm also going to kind of talk about some of my ideas and thoughts. And if you are a mermaid lover, if you have more information, more resources, I mean, I'm sure there's more out there that I haven't been able to find. Please message me. You can find me on Instagram. Or like if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, comment, tell me, give me all of the resources. I love this stuff. Okay. Before we get into the topic though, of course, as always, we absolutely must do our imagination practice, because I stand by the fact that imagination is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And I love opening up the podcast with a little practice, a little reminder, if you will, that imagination is such a beautiful thing. It is such a powerful thing. And I feel like when we do little mindful imaginings together, I don't know, it just kind of helps us get into the zone and the realm of poetry, of I think there's like, they call it the poetic mind, the the magical mind, you know what I mean. It's just, it is so important. So today, what should we imagine today together? I mean, we're going to be talking about mermaids. So I guess let's all picture what we would be as a mermaid. You know, when you're playing, I don't know if you did this as a kid, if you played mermaids in the pool, but when you were a kid playing in the pool as a mermaid, did you have a mermaid name? Did it change? What color tail was your mermaid tail? And what did she wear? What was her little like bra outfit? And did she have like pearls in her hair or like shimmering scales? Did she have like, oh, I loved that movie Aquamarine, the little starfish earrings that she had that would tell her secrets, or no, they'd whisper compliments in her ear. Oh, I remember one of my friends, my sweet friends from middle school and high school, who I'm still friends with, and I love her so much. Eden, she got me these little starfish earrings because I love that scene so much, and I just loved how they whispered compliments in her ear, and so I'd wear them and I'd pretend like my little starfish earrings were whispering compliments in my ear. I love that. Anyway, yeah, I want you to picture you as a mermaid. What would you look like? And more importantly, what would you do? Where would you go? I feel like my mermaid life, I would want to be like Pirates of the Caribbean era. Yeah, that kind of like ocean. Although I love the Pacific Ocean. Oh, imagine your favorite ocean and you're a mermaid there. And what would you be doing? What does your perfect mermaid day look like? I'll describe mine. I think that it would be, I'd be down. I'm assuming that there's a palace like an Atlantis sort of city. And I would be, what would I do with my mermaid day? I would definitely be doing my long mermaid hair. I'd be like stringing pearls through it very calmly. And then I think I would like go, I'm imagining like a palace again. What would like a mermaid tea party look like? I think I'd try to have like a little mermaid tea party with all my mermaid friends. You guys, actually. That's who I'd want to have tea with. And we would do all our hair together, and then we would eat whatever little mermaid delicacies they have under the sea. I don't think we'd be eating fish. I feel like fish are our friends, but maybe, I don't know. I have no idea. And then I would like to explore the shore as a mermaid. You know, I'd be looking under all the rocks and finding like little creatures and having them be my friends. And I feel like the Little Mermaid is so in my mind as well. I think that I would like be examining like what's going on the shore, and who comes to the ocean every day, and like what can I learn about them? Are they my friend, or would they try to capture me? I don't know. It'd be really exciting to be a mermaid. So I hope you were imagining what your mermaid day would look like, and throughout the rest of the day, definitely be thinking about it, because I think, and one of my little, I guess, like hypotheses is that there's more to mermaids than meets the eye. And I think that I know a lot of girls that like feel very drawn to mermaids and feel like there's just something beautiful there. And when there's something beautiful that I'm drawn to and that I'm enthralled and enchanted by, it's like my little spidey sense goes off in my brain that there's something deeper there. There's something more. There's a reason why it's so beautiful to me that isn't necessarily scientifically explained. Like there's something deep there. And so that's why whenever I feel those little spidey senses go off with these subjects, I want to talk about them with you, because that's what this whole podcast is about. But yeah, even when I can't uncover all of the mysteries, it's almost more exciting, because it's like, wait, there's more to learn. I can feel it. I can feel that there's something deep here to learn from and to like be enchanted by, some more to be mystified and in awe of. And yeah, that's why I want to talk about mermaids today. So let's just start. So mermaids have been around for millennia. They are one of like these creatures, these ideas that have really always been here. They've always been around. And that to me is super fascinating. When it comes to like mythical creatures and stuff, why have they been with us for so long? Like to this day, you know what I mean? Like it's this idea and this fascination that has just been with the human race for forever. In the Mermaid book by Skye Alexander, it says, I love this quote. She says, "We depend on water for our very existence, so it's no surprise that people have long attributed magical and divine properties to water. The word mer comes from the Old English mer, meaning sea. In French, the word for sea is mer, and the word for mother is mère, suggesting that the sea is mother to us all. And as the sea nurtures people from all cultures and walks of life, so in one form or another do mermaids appear in virtually all cultures, past and present, and their stories are as colorful as the people who tell them." So I love that idea of the ocean, and mother being linked. I find that really fascinating. There's a book called The Blue Mind, and he talks about the blue mind theory. It's this, he's like an ocean researcher named Wallace J. Nichols, and he wrote this book called The Blue Mind, which is the surprising science that shows how being near, in, on, or underwater can make you happier, healthier, more connected, and better at what you do. And in it, there's this little line where he talks about how our first experience with the water is actually inside our mother's womb. And that kind of blew my mind thinking about that. And then he talks about, how our bodies are made from water. And it started to lead my mind down a lot of interesting trails, because I find it really beautiful that women are linked in a way with water, and that life is linked with water, and our cycle as women is linked with the moon and the tide, the ocean tide. That's so interesting to me, and again sends off like those little spidey sense signals that there's something there There's something there to uncover and to think about and to find meaning in. I love this quote from, her name is Sofka Zinoviev, and I might have butchered that name, so forgive me, Sofka. But she says, "It's quite a big deal. It's so extraordinary that we female humans should be linked to the moon and the tides. It would sound like science fiction if you made it up. Mysterious planetary forces making us bleed." I just think that little tie in is really fascinating. And I just love that idea of the ocean being tied to the word mother, the word mer and mare. I love that. So as Sky Alexander said in that little quote that I read, there are lots of different cultures and cultural stories that have different folklore about where mermaids came from and what they are. And the one that I was able to research the most was Greek and Roman mythology. And some of them believe that the water nymphs originally had like two-legged bodies, but that they could have morphed into the lower half of the body being a fishtail. They believe that they could have stemmed from that idea of the water nymph, but then a lot of other information suggests that they believe that early descriptions and images of Aphrodite and Venus have led people to believe that mermaids may have stemmed or even come from these goddesses. I guess it's the same goddess, right? Aphrodite and Venus, who is the goddess of love, fertility, beauty, and poetry. I believe, let's see, I think that there's one more descriptor as well for her that I really thought was interesting. Let me find it. Okay, yeah. So it's saying that in this book that Aphrodite and Venus were the goddesses of love, beauty, but also they governed art, music, poetry, and the finer things in life. And it says that it was not only their job to look good, but to enrich the world with beauty in all its many forms. I really like that. And I feel like it's like a very good descriptor of the mermaid. In my mind, at least. I really relate mermaids to those things. Beauty, poetry, art, music, even with the legends of the sirens, you know. Yeah, mermaids are very much so tied to music. I don't know. I really like that. There's also like the Irish and Scottish and Wales, it says, islands. They have the legends of the Selkies, or the seal people, who don the skins of seals in order to glide through the ocean. When they decide to come ashore, usually to take human lovers, Selkies remove their seal skins and walk on land as ordinary women. Should a man discover and take possession of a Selkie's pelt, he can prevent her from returning to the sea. So there's a lot of like shape-shifting sort of folklore and stories as well when it comes to mermaids or mermaid adjacent creatures like the Selkie. So when there's common legends and folklore between different cultures, and again there's mermaid legends from all over the world, I take that to mean that there's some truth to be gleaned. There's something there, like I've said throughout this whole podcast. And while I definitely believe that there's a lot of potential, I would say, I would not put it past God to have made mermaids. Typically, we gain more of like that symbolic truth or that poetic truth from these things. However, like I said, I would not put it past God to make mermaids. And certainly wouldn't put it past him to plant the idea of mermaids within the human heart, because mermaids are this beautiful, wonderful idea, and I believe that all beautiful, full and wonderful things stem from God. So that gives me even more to think about. But there are some really interesting sightings of mermaids throughout the years. And this one I really liked from the book. She says that in the 1600s, Renaissance entrepreneurs decided to plumb the underwater realms off the Isle of Man by lowering a man encased in a glass bubble-like device into the depths. The explorers hoped to make a fortune by recovering sunken treasure they believed lay hidden beneath the sea. However, they ran out of rope before their man reached the bottom. When his companions pulled him back up, he reported having witnessed an underwater paradise with streets made of coral, glistening pyramids of crystal, and mother-of-pearl buildings decorated with colorful shells. He described one room he managed to observe closely as being constructed of precious stones of all kinds. Additionally, he claimed to have met comely mermen and beautiful mermaids, the inhabitants of this blissful realm. So that's a really cool sighting. There's another one I really liked too that I wanted to read. Okay, this one's cool. So after a stormy night in 1870, a mermaid was spotted playing in the water near a beach in Benbecula, Outer Hebrides. When the townspeople realized what she was, they tried to capture her in a net, but their efforts were in vain. The mermaid quickly swam out of harm's way. She had almost escaped when the town bully hit her in the head with a rock. Her body washed up on the beach the next day. According to Tom Williams of the Naples Daily News, upon close inspection, everyone agreed this was a true mermaid. She had the body of a child with well-developed breasts, but below the waist she had scales and a tail like a fish. She appeared so human that the town's officials ordered her body to be buried in the town cemetery. That's a cool one too. Anyway, it's so fun to think about. So. That's actually a really sad story, by the way. That is really sad. Poor little mermaid. But how cool to think that, people maybe have seen some of these mysteries, these creatures that have been told in so many legends. I love that. I love hearing about mermaid sightings and different mythical creature sightings. Why is there just like nothing more exciting than that? So I know I mentioned a little bit about how Aphrodite and Venus were the goddesses of music, poetry, love, beauty. Another little note on the music thing with the sirens. I liked these quotes as well about the song that mermaids sing. This one's from Mary Lau. It says, "The secret power in their song, it is the sound of the subversive, luring us from the orderly conscious world down to the depth of the world of dreams. And the harder we try to ignore that singing, the more desperately we want to hear it." Oof, I love that. I love that quote. Here's another one from Sue Monk Kid. She says, "In stories, poems, and myths, hearing a mermaid song was considered a haunting and hazardous experience. Typically, it lured the listener to toss aside safety and sometimes his or her whole known world and plunge into the waves. Such a leap could bring doom or it could bring salvation. Sometimes it brought both. The mermaid song inevitably calls us to the unknown, to the impassioned world of change and possibility. Ultimately, mermaids persist in the imagination because they represent a primal human need to dive deep into the mystery of our unlived life." Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. I just love that quote too. So good. I feel like those quotes really encapsulate this feeling I have of there's something meaningful here with this idea of the mermaid and her song and who she is. And I really like that idea that they persist in the human imagination because they represent a primal human need. I think that that's true. I really do. I think that that's true. And this idea really reminds me of another quote by G.K. Chesterton. Actually, two quotes. He says, "My first and last philosophy, that which I believed in with unbroken certainty, I learned in the nursery. The things I believed most then, the things I believe most now, are the things called fairy tales. They seem to me to be the entirely reasonable things. They are not fantasies. Compared with them, other things are fantastic. Compared with them, religion and rationalism are both abnormal, though religion is abnormally right and rationalism abnormally wrong. Fairyland is nothing but the sunny country of common sense. It is not earth that judges heaven, but heaven that judges earth. So for me, at least, it was not earth that criticized Elfland, but Elfland that criticized the earth. I knew the magic beanstalk before I had tasted beans. I was sure of the man in the moon before I was certain of the moon." I love this quote. In fact, the first time I heard this quote, I remember like my mouth hanging open and being like, wow, like there's someone out there in the world that gets me, that has studied these things, that talks about these things, and maybe I'm not so crazy. Maybe like the little like, I don't know, stirrings in my soul, I guess, that I feel with things like this. Maybe it's not so crazy. Maybe there really is something there. I was reading recently a book called The Rock That Is Higher, Story is Truth, and it was written by Madeline L'Engle, who wrote the Wrinkle in Time series. It's a super good book, highly recommend. And she was talking about how truth is different from fact. That just because you can prove a fact doesn't mean you're getting the full truth. And just because you can't prove the truth doesn't mean that that's not the truth, if that makes sense. So there's a few quotes I wanted to read by her as well. She says, "If we limit ourselves to the possible and provable, we render ourselves incapable of change and growth, and that is something that should never end. If we limit ourselves to the age that we are and forget all the ages we have been, we diminish our truth. Perhaps it is the child within us who is able to recognize the truth of story, the mysterious, the numinous, the unexplainable, and the grown-up within us who accepts these qualities with joy." Anyway, she says more, but I'm going to go on to the next one. She talks in another chapter about the same idea of the child within. And she brings up how God, Jesus Christ, even asks us to be like little children if we want to understand God and the world. So she says, "He even told us that we had to be like little children ourselves if we wanted to understand God and yet the world. And too often the church taught then and still teaches that we have to outgrow our childhood love of story, of imagination, of creativity, of fun, and so we blunder into the grown-up world of literalism." She says, "Literalism makes no demands of us, asks us of no faith, does not cause us to grow. Story pushes and shoves us and then helps us out of the mud puddle." Anyway, I really like that. And, you know, story, myth, legend, all these things are related to each other. And so, anyway, if you're like me and you love these mythical ideas and you feel like there's something true there to learn, you're not alone. And I just wanted to throw that in there. I think that more than anything, when we think about mermaids, at least this is true for me, it reminds me of magic. It reminds me and opens my mind up to a world of possibility. And I think that that's not only really important, but I think that it's something really beautiful. And beauty and magic and mystery, it's almost, I don't want to like misspeak and say it's like a higher place of thinking or a higher way of thinking, but I do think that it allows our minds to almost enter into like a higher realm. I feel like we're able to ponder on things that are important, and I think that we're able to consider things that might be true and that are true. I mean, even thinking about the possibility of a mermaid or a mermaid world, an underwater world, like, again, it's outside of the realm of provability. And whenever we enter that realm, I think there's just something really special there that can happen to our mind, or our subconscious, and our thoughts. C.S. Lewis says, "You and I have need of the strongest spell that can be found to wake us from the evil enchantment of worldliness." And I think that mermaids can be a part of that spell to awake us from the evil enchantment of worldliness. I really do feel like these myths, they awaken our mind. They help us rise above all the muck and yuck and just bleh, you know what I'm saying, the bleh nature of reality and of the world. And yeah, it rises our mind up into faith. I think faith in the beautiful, in the unseen, and the things with meaning, the things with real meaning. I love this little quote from the book that says that in American mythology, merfolk can move between the material and spirit worlds with a flip of their fishtails. The only time we can see them is when we are on the same wavelength, so to speak, like fairies and angels. I love that. I just love that. The only time we can see them is when we are on the same wavelength, so to speak, like fairies and angels. It's just so good. There's another quote by Chesterton where he talks about how he believes that these mythical creatures, such as like a centaur and a mermaid, to him, they have a certain truth. And he describes how, he says, the mermaid is half a lady and half a fish, but there is nothing fishy about the lady. A centaur is half a gentleman and half a horse, but there is nothing horsey about the gentleman. He says that what he believes that they are signifying to us is that there is some sort of monstrous quality to humanity, and they are in juxtaposition to one another, basically, which I think is really interesting. And he talks about how, however, there is beauty there and there is something else. There's a gentlemanly quality to a man, and then there's a monstrous quality to a man. There's a womanly beautiful quality to a woman and a monstrous quality there. And it's kind of a representation of the human soul in a way. Something divine and something natural. I think that's a really interesting thought to me. And what I've kind of gleaned from my ponderings on mermaids is I think that mermaids are a really beautiful symbol for women. Again, not saying they're not real, because I'm totally a mermaid believer. But symbolically, I do think that they are a really good symbol for women. Again, that link with motherhood, the longing for mother, there's a quote in here, the book, where she talks about how, she says, when the mermaid beckons us to follow her to her underwater realm, we feel perhaps a twinge of longing to return to the soothing weightlessness of the womb, where we once floated comfortably in a salty sea of amniotic fluid. I think that there's something there. I also think, though, with mermaids having this beautiful quality to them, representing the beauty, love, poetry, fertility. Like, I think that they're a really nice symbol for womanhood, I guess. There's also, like Chesterton said, there is a dangerous side to them. There is a sort of enchantress quality, and I think that's really fun and interesting as well. But I find a lot of beauty in the symbol overall, and I find a lot of poetry in it, I guess. And sometimes with poetry, it's hard to articulate exactly what you feel, but there's something really beautiful about them, and about them being very tied to womanhood and girlhood. And I mean, again, even with women ourselves being tied to the moon and the tide with the cycle, I find a lot of meaning there. And I'm someone who has always loved the ocean. Oh, I love the ocean so much. Like, that whole Blue Mind book and the Blue Mind theory totally resonates with me. When I'm near the water, there is peace, there is comfort, but there's also a sense of adventure and romance, and it just, like, it makes my soul feel so at peace and at rest being near the water, whether it be the ocean or the lake, but especially the ocean. Oh, and I love how it just makes you feel small yet full. Oh, I don't know. I love it. So I've always felt that is true, that water, there's a healing quality, and also there's obviously a very, very much so a life-giving quality to water. I even love the tie of, like, Christ being called the living water. Ooh, I love that. Ooh, I really like that thought of Christ being the living water, and thinking of what a mermaid is. Living inside of Christ, living inside of the water. I love that idea. Yeah. And maybe that's why, another reason why we feel so tied to the water, and why we feel like it's just so energizing and refreshing. There's definitely a Christian tie there, for sure, because the same feelings I get when I think about, like I said, all these things, these myths, mermaids, fairy tales, I get those feelings when I think about Christ and faith and beauty and love. And yeah, that's a fun thought to end on. Mermaids living in a body of water, and Christ being the symbol of the water. I love that. I love it. I love how it's tied to motherhood. I love how it's tied to all of it. Anyway, I hope I've given you some fun things to think about this week and to ponder on. Honestly, I am no expert in this subject. I read a beautiful book about it, but there's still so much to learn. And I didn't go into all the legends. There's so many cool ones. But I just kind of wanted to talk about the symbolism more so. And so if you would like another podcast episode on more of the legends and things, we can totally do that. And if you are an expert and know more about mermaids and can teach me or expound on some of the things and the ideas that I've touched on today, please reach out to me. Oh my gosh, that would be absolutely amazing to hear from you and to learn from you. And do a podcast episode, or even if you just want to tell me personally and I can share it later. Oh, I would love that. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed musing on the mermaids with me today. Again, as summer is coming to an end and we're in this romantic zone of the world, the earth changing and cooling down a little bit, and becoming full at the time of harvest. Oof, it's just such a fun time. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. If you're able to get out and enjoy the water a little bit more before the season changes, do it. Oh, it'll make your day. It always makes my day better. And as you do that, dream about the mermaids, think about the mermaids, think about what they mean to you, and please let me know if you have more thoughts again. Okay. I really love you guys. Thanks for listening and hanging out with me today, and I will be back soon for another episode for you. Love you.